Hey, this is Kels Not Chels Not Live. I am Kelsey Macke, and this is phase 2 of the Revise Along Challenge. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming back for phase 2 of the Revise Along Challenge, which is my Instagram challenge, which is essentially a sort of walkthrough of my revision process that I'm actually undergoing right now on a novel that I finished drafting in November. So if you have not yet watched the video for phase 1 of the challenge, make sure that you watch that first, because I'm just gonna jump straight into talking through the words on the phase 2 challenge card so that you know exactly what they mean and how I use them to revise. Up first, I've got words like gaps, threads, beats, scenes, and plot. During this part of the process, I like to think of the different things that need to happen on my manuscript as boulders, rocks, and pebbles. And I think it's really important to move all the boulders around, the things that require a lot of heavy lifting and restructuring and getting other things out of the way. Those big things, in my opinion, need to happen first. So after I've done that initial read through, the next thing that I do is try to sort out where is my plot in regards to the traditional plot beats, or I've been using the chart method and making sure that all those components are there. And since I pre-planned, I know that they are, but I'm checking to make sure that I made good on all of those things that were necessary. Am I ratcheting up the stakes at each of those plot interchanges, or did I drop one? Did I miss one? Did I miss an opportunity to tighten that tension during the process? I am doing something new this time, which I'm really enjoying. I went and got from Amazon a bunch of white Postits. And the reason I wanted white ones is because I'm going to color code like characters and their appearances and different plot threads, and sort of like different sections of the book are going to get a different color, so that when I step back and look at the whole thing stuck to my wall, I've got a wall covered in Post-its, which you can see a picture of in my Instagram feed, but it'll be a little bit easier to tell which color things are when you're not doing like green or blue on a colored Post-it like this. So I'm writing on each Post-it. At the very, very top, I'm writing just like the first few words of the first line so that it's easy to find in my manuscript. And then I'm going through and essentially listing what happens in that scene and why it's important, or its purpose. So I'm notating the key things that have to happen in order for the book to keep going. I'm only writing down things in that scene that if they were not there, the book could not move forward. If I come across a scene that doesn't have any actionable things that change the game, then the scene is not doing enough work. So once I see all of the Post-its on the wall and I track all of those plot points, I'll be able to see if there are places where I dropped tension or where I have scenes that are not doing enough work. And then of course the job is to decide, am I going to cut those scenes, or am I going to put them to work by adding something to the scene to make it do more? Characterization is something that's important at this phase for me, making sure that the things that my characters are doing are in character. So this is going to require me to take a really close look at each character and what they're doing, and making sure that they're actually following through on their particular motivations. So when they're behaving in a certain way, am I doing that because I want to put that scene in, or am I doing it because that's how this character would actually respond? Irony and twists, those are just moments where I'm looking to circumvent expectations in my book. There are certain moments in a book that your readers expect, and I think sometimes those are good things, because I think sometimes when you miss the opportunity to do some of those more trope-based moments in your book, your readers can actually be disappointed that you left something out that makes the story feel incomplete or unsatisfying. But I also like to keep my eyes peeled for ways that I can circumvent what they expect and make the book just a little bit more fresh and unique. Details, pretty self-explanatory. I'm gonna start looking as I'm working through things that are like place, location, setting. I'm not really going in and just adding the description, but I'm making sure that the place and the time that this particular scene takes place is the most effective. Did I put them in the middle of a regular old classroom, or could I have put them on the edge of a cliff? That kind of thing. Dialogue. We're going to make sure when our characters are speaking that their dialogue sounds realistic, authentic, and it also sounds true to character. And the most common way that I check my dialogue is I read my dialogue out loud. And I think that's a pretty common thing to do. But when you get to this phase of the revision process, you might find there are certain scenes that you have not said out loud. And I think it is important to do that. I have even been known to use my voice recording app to record in a scene that has lots of back and forth. I have before recorded myself recording like person A's lines with gaps in between them so that I can in real time insert the lines from person B and hear that back and forth as far as how they are bouncing off of each other. Antagonist, this is just a time for me to take a look at the person or the thing or the entity that is preventing my main character from accomplishing their goal. And this is the time that I make sure that their motivations are clear. My antagonist has to have reasons for doing what they're doing, even if that thing is standing in the way of my main character. And I try really, really hard to make sure that if I'm placing a person in the position of antagonist, that I'm making sure they're doing it for great reasons and that that's coming across in the book. And I think that might be it. We've got gaps, threads, characterization details, beats, lists. Oh, the lists. That's our last one. Okay, so for the lists, during this time in my process, I always get my notebook. Every single book that I write, I use a regular old spiral notebook, and I track all kinds of things in here. My characters, my plot, my query practice, the scenes that I know I want to write, research, and then eventually my chapter by chapter like outline of what I think is going to happen in each chapter. And as I've said before, if you are a pantser, bless you, but I can't do it that way. I need to know that I'm not wasting my time. And for me, pantsing means an inherent risk that I'm writing something that I cannot use, and I hate that. So I need a notebook. Once I've done my read through and I'm starting this process, I definitely start building lists of things to do, and these are action items. So when I'm trying to put together a to-do list, I usually start with a list that's just off the top of my head. Anything that I think needs to happen in the book, I'll write down in a pre-list. So then I break those things into their respective groups: big stuff, medium stuff, and small stuff. So I break them into those boulders, rocks, and pebbles. The big stuff is going to be things like tracking the plot, making sure that I've done a breeze through of the whole book where I'm checking for emotion, that I'm checking for humor or tension or fear or whatever it is that you're doing in your book. Checking to make sure that I've ended my chapters in the right places where I'm creating tension at the end of the chapters, not resolution at the end of the chapters, which is something that I naturally gravitate towards. I almost always write chapters that feel like a conclusion. They feel like a period, and I'm working to get better at making the ends of my chapters feel much more like ... so that the reader has a reason to turn the page. And I'm really bad at that. I very often create chapters that feel like a good time to put the book down rather than a good time to keep turning the pages. So that's something that I'm working on. My medium stuff list is almost always way bigger, and these are things like adding scenes, specifically adding single scenes that are just going to take a few minutes at the keyboard, like actually writing in a scene. Checking to make sure that things are consistent, certain little aspects of characterization, little facts that are going to require like 3 mentions or 4 mentions throughout the book to become clear, where you're not doing a big thorough rewrite, but you're placing this thing in several points during the book. And then the small stuff list is little things like checking all the titles of each chapter, really like smaller scenes or like B character scenes, lines that I know need to be added, checking for certain like changes if I like changed a word or a name. So I make those lists, and those to-do lists again are action items. These are things that I'm going to be able to actually cross off my list and have be finished. So that is the phase 2 of the Revise Along Challenge, and essentially is what I am doing on my book right now. It's the next set of steps that I do to get my book ready to send to my readers, which is ultimately the goal. Whether the reader is your critique partner or your agent or an agent that you are querying, I think it's important that we do all of the steps, all of the work that we can to make the book as good as it can be before we send it off. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, please do click the big red button and of course hit the bell if you want notifications when new videos go up. I'd love to know where you are in your revising process, so be sure to leave that in the comments below so that I can encourage you as we go through this project together. Have a great day and I'll see you soon.